Ma'am, come out here and show me your ID right now.
I am inside my own house. What's the crime here?
We got a call. You fit the description, so step out.
Detained for standing in my doorway? You don't have a warrant.
Look, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. I'm a U.S. attorney. Get your supervisor here immediately.
Ma'am, step out here and let me see your identification. The command came out dull and rehearsed, illuminated by the flashing red and blue lights that washed over the quiet neighborhood street. The insects went silent. A porch light buzzed overhead. The scent of fresh lawn clippings lingered in the warm evening air. The woman stood firm in her doorway, resting one hand casually against the doorframe. She was barefoot, wearing a long, dark sweater over a simple white shirt. Her body language was calm, but her eyes were sharp. Officer, before I do a single thing, can you explain why you are demanding to see my ID while I'm standing inside my own house? The two police officers looked at each other. One shifted his stance. The other officer kept his hand near his belt, not touching his weapon, but close enough to show he was ready. We got a call. You match the description given. Step outside. The woman didn't budge. She looked past them down the block, spotting a neighbor's curtain moving slightly. The glow of a cell phone screen lit up a driveway across the street. I am asking for the legal grounds for your request. I am not obligated to give you my ID without reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred. What crime are you currently investigating? The question hit harder than her soft voice implied. The officer in the front stood up taller. Ma'am, this is a lawful order. If you refuse, you can be detained. The porch light flickered a bit as a breeze rustled through the trees. Nearby, someone's garage door rumbled shut. Just normal sounds on a normal night. It was a moment that should have been over by now. The woman let out a long breath. Detained for what reason? Standing in my own doorway? The officer's jaw clenched. You are being uncooperative. That word changed the entire mood. A neighbor stepped out onto their porch, holding a phone up at chest level. Another door cracked open further down the street. The quiet neighborhood was starting to watch itself. Officer, the woman said, keeping her voice level. I am cooperating. I am asserting my constitutional rights. Those are two very different things. The officer took a step forward, stopping just inches from the entryway. His voice dropped lower. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The woman didn't step back. She didn't yell. She just tilted her head a little, studying him like she was memorizing every single detail of his face. You are standing at the entrance of my home with no warrant and no probable cause. I am asking you to step back. The red and blue lights flashed across her face, across the white paint of the door, and across the metal badge on the officer's chest. The second officer cleared his throat nervously. Ma'am, just show us the ID and this whole thing will be over. The woman looked straight at the phone recording from across the street. Then she looked back at the cops. This is being recorded, and you are about to make a choice that is going to follow you for the rest of your career. At that specific moment, nobody on that block knew who she really was. Can you even imagine being in her shoes at that moment? Standing on your own front porch, having to defend your right to simply exist in your own home? It's honestly stressful just thinking about it. All they saw was a black woman at her own door being ordered to prove she had a right to be there. And the officers were seconds away from finding out exactly who they were dealing with. The woman at the door didn't learn to be this calm by accident. Her name was Jordan Banks, 45 years old, raised in a skinny brick house on the west side of Detroit. Her mom was a middle school history teacher. Her dad worked the night shift at a sorting plant. Dinner was always late. The conversations were always serious. The TV was usually stuck on the news channel. Jordan learned at a young age that the rules weren't applied fairly to everyone. She learned it when her dad got pulled over coming home from work, his hands still smelling like factory ink. She learned it when her mom taught her exactly how to talk to people in charge, clearly, politely, and precisely. She took that precision with her into school, the debate team, mock trials, and law reviews. She didn't raise her voice. She just sharpened her arguments. Law school didn't make her soft. It gave her focus. She found herself drawn to federal laws, the limits of the Constitution, and the places where government power clashed with individual rights. She worked for a district judge who believed the Constitution was only as strong as the people enforcing it. By her late 30s, Jordan was prosecuting complicated federal cases, organized scams, public corruption, and civil rights violations. She stood in courtrooms facing criminals who underestimated her. They stopped doing that pretty fast. Her appointment as a United States attorney came after years of building a quiet, solid reputation. No scandals, no drama, just hard work that stood up to checking. She believed in the law because she understood the consequences of it. The officers outside her door had their own backgrounds, too. Officer Kyle Davis had been on the force for 7 years. He was known for being reliable and responsive, following calls exactly as they came in. A neighbor had reported a suspicious person going into a house. The description was vague. Black female. Didn't know if she lived there. Officer Brian Miller stood next to him. 11 years on patrol. A record with no formal punishment, but plenty of informal notes in his file. He tended to escalate situations. Needed reminders about his tone. Good instincts on the street, though. Neither cop expected this to get complicated. These calls rarely did. Knock, ask questions, check ID, leave. What neither of them questioned was the assumption behind the call, that someone needed to prove they belonged at their own front door. That staying calm meant you were defying them. They believed authority required people to comply before getting an explanation. Their training taught them steps to follow. It hadn't taught them how to hold back when those steps were challenged. Jordan recognized their body language immediately. The angle of their shoulders, the way the closer officer stood just outside the door frame, the way the other one watched the street instead of listening to her words. She had prosecuted cases built on moments exactly like this, small violations that were dismissed as harmless until they were stacked up into a pattern. What she felt at the door wasn't fear. It was clarity. She knew exactly what was happening, and she knew exactly what it would turn into if she let it go unchecked. 2 different futures were happening in real time. One led to calming things down. The other led to serious consequences. The officers were about to choose without realizing they already had. The night air felt thick and humid. Porch lights threw long shadows across the sidewalk. Phones were turning on all across the street. A neighbor stepped out onto their own steps, holding a screen up high. Jordan Banks stayed at her door, arms loose but ready. She placed one hand gently against the wood frame. Officer Davis stepped forward, his voice getting firmer now. "Ma'am, show us your ID." "I have already asked why this is necessary," Jordan replied evenly. "I am standing in my home. What crime am I suspected of committing?" The officers looked at each other again. Each of them read her calmness as rebellion. The crowd of silent witnesses was getting bigger. Another neighbor came out from behind their curtains, recording. A dog barked somewhere down the block. The normal background noise was now framing a very abnormal confrontation. "Step outside," Miller repeated. His tone was sharper. Jordan didn't move. Instead, she tilted her head a bit, watching, taking notes mentally. You are escalating this without cause. I am requesting your legal justification. The officers shifted again. One hand hovered near a service weapon. Fingers twitched. Authority, not the law, was driving what they were doing. From across the street, a young guy yelled out, "This is ridiculous! She hasn't done anything!" Davis snapped his head toward the voice. Another neighbor held up her phone. "Are you recording this?" "Ma'am," Jordan gestured smoothly. "Yes, everything is being documented." Everything. Miller's jaw tightened up. "Step back from the door," he warned. Jordan's eyes stayed steady. "You are standing on the threshold of my home without a warrant, without probable cause. This is not lawful." It breaks your heart to realize she has to be her own lawyer in her pajamas just to stay safe. Nobody should have to work this hard just to breathe in their own house. The tension hung between the porch, the cops, and the gathering witnesses. The normal suburban night was now vibrating with eyes watching. The crowd wasn't huge, not yet, but it was enough to force every move and every word into the public eye. And in that moment, both sides understood the stakes. Compliance without understanding wasn't enough. Unchecked authority was about to face consequences. The street had turned into a courtroom. The witnesses were the unofficial jury. Jordan waited. Steady. Patient. Every second was being documented. Every action was being measured. The officers kept up their standoff, unaware that the story they were writing wasn't going to end quietly. The night shifted. The porch light glared off the officer's badge. Fingers hovered near handcuffs. Every step was calculated. Rehearsed. Jordan Banks kept her voice flat. "Officer, you are exceeding your authority. There is no reason to continue this confrontation." Miller stepped closer, blocking part of the doorway. Davis moved to the side, ready to help. The air felt heavy. The temperature seemed to rise. The normal quiet of the street was replaced by a tension you could actually feel physically. One officer reached toward Jordan. She stepped back just a bit, carefully, keeping her hands where they could see them. This was her home. She had the right to control the space. A neighbor recorded from their driveway. The light from the screen lit up her worried face. Another neighbor whispered from behind a window. "This is wrong," she said. Davis tightened his grip on his notebook, looking over at Miller. "Step aside, ma'am," he warned. Jordan didn't respond with anger. She didn't fight back physically. She asserted the constitutional right she had spent years defending. "I am not resisting. I am requesting legal justification." The tension ramped up even more. Hands moved toward her identification. She brought it out slowly, deliberately. Her federal credentials, her badge as a U.S. attorney. The holographic seal shined in the porch light. The officers froze. Their confidence wavered. The standoff slowed down almost barely enough to notice, but the intimidation didn't stop right away. Voices got louder. Orders were said again. The fact that witnesses were there didn't change anything yet. The officers still tried to take control. Every second stretched out. The threat of physical force hung in the air. Yet Jordan's composure was absolute. Inside, she was filing away every detail for the record. Names, positions, words spoken, timestamps. This is how evidence is saved. Outside, the regular neighborhood was now a scene of legal and moral conflict. Authority met the law, bias met preparation, and the outcome hung on decisions made in the next few heartbeats. The tension finally broke as the officers actually looked at the credentials. Jordan Banks opened her badge slowly, letting the officers see the official hologram, her photo, and the seal of the U.S. Department of Justice. Davis leaned in closer, squinting. Miller stepped back a bit, uncertainty creeping into the way he stood. Sergeant Karen Simmons arrived at the scene. 25 years in law enforcement, known for her calm but firm leadership. She looked at Jordan, then the officers, and the space felt smaller, tighter, and more focused. "Judge," Sergeant Simmons said quietly, realizing how serious this was. "I apologize. We should have verified this sooner." Jordan's expression stayed calm. She nodded once. "Thank you. I need all reports, body camera footage, and radio logs documenting this encounter." The officers' faces had lost all their color. Their hands fidgeted. Confidence was replaced by shock, disbelief, and immediate worry about what was going to happen to them. Simmons turned to Davis. "You need to return all personal property immediately. Notify your supervisor. Write a full statement. There is no room for delay." Miller let out a breath. He looked at Davis, then at Jordan. We didn't realize." Jordan's eyes stayed steady. "You had the authority to question." "Yes. But you did not have the right to escalate, threaten, or intimidate. Every action was being recorded, and now it will follow you." The neighbors on their porches stayed quiet. Phones were still recording. The moment couldn't be undone. Jordan stepped back from the doorway. She was no longer under direct threat. The officers were left with the reality of their mistake. A lesson in accountability had been delivered silently, but clearly. The video captured by the neighbors went online within hours. The footage showed Jordan Banks standing calmly at her doorway, officers insisting on identification, and the moment her credentials as a U.S. attorney were revealed. Within a day, it was everywhere. Thousands of people shared it. Legal experts broke down every second, pointing out procedural failures, the lack of probable cause, and the improper escalation. Civil rights groups put out statements highlighting the systemic issues. A formal complaint was filed against Officers Davis and Miller. The allegations included unlawful detention, intimidation, violation of civil rights, and abuse of authority. Each claim was backed up by timestamps, phone recordings, and witness statements. Internal Affairs opened a full investigation. The officers were put on administrative leave. Interviews revealed that neither of them tried to check Jordan's credentials before escalating things. The pattern of their previous stops and complaints was examined and cross-referenced. Public pressure grew. Media coverage emphasized that the woman targeted was a federal prosecutor, highlighting how the power dynamic shifts when the victim has influence. Within weeks, the findings came out. Both officers had violated department policies. One faced being fired, the other received a formal reprimand and suspension. Their union tried to appeal, but the clear evidence left no wiggle room. The city started policy reforms. Mandatory training on implicit bias and de-escalation, revised protocols for checking credentials, and oversight procedures to stop future misuse of authority. Jordan Banks didn't seek personal gain from the incident. Her focus remained on systemic change. She used her position to push for stronger accountability measures and education on civil rights. The episode served as a warning. Public scrutiny, documentation, and legal knowledge came together to enforce justice. Mistakes have consequences. Policies were rewritten. Careers were changed. The community learned a lesson about the limits of authority and the power of being seen. Justice wasn't delivered with a show, but through procedural integrity, legal action, and insisting on accountability. What happened at Jordan Banks' doorway is a clear example of constitutional limits. Under the Fourth Amendment, Police cannot demand identification from someone inside their own home without reasonable suspicion of a crime. The entryway of a home is legally protected, and curtilage law reinforces that standing on your own porch does not waive these rights. The escalation that happened was fueled by implicit bias. The officers interpreted calm professionalism and assertive questioning as being difficult. Bias can twist perception, causing law enforcement to overreact even in situations where the evidence contradicts their assumptions. Training alone can't get rid of these automatic judgments. Accountability and verification are essential for anyone facing similar encounters. There are key steps to protect your rights and stay safe. Remain calm, speak clearly, ask for the legal basis for any demands. Document everything if it is legal to do so. Time, date, actions, witness names. Do not resist physically. Compliance under protest, paired with careful documentation, creates a strong record for legal protection. If credentials or evidence of authority are questioned, present them slowly and deliberately. Ask that supervisors or higher-ranking officers be contacted. Save any video or photo evidence. Get a lawyer immediately after the encounter to understand your options and potential claims. This incident also underscores systemic responsibility. Departments must set up clear protocols for verifying identity and authority, require de-escalation training, and implement independent oversight for misconduct complaints. Public scrutiny and documentation serve as crucial checks on power. Jordan Banks's composure and legal knowledge ensured that justice was possible. But thousands without her resources face similar violations every single day. This is why education, awareness, and structural safeguards are vital. The story teaches that the law exists to protect individuals, that authority has limits, and that accountability is not optional. Justice is not just about punishment. It is about ensuring that every citizen, regardless of race or status, can assert their rights safely and effectively. We have to remember that judging someone based on their appearance or skin color says nothing about them, but it reveals everything about our own character. True human dignity is found in how we treat people when we think we have power over them, not when we need something from them. Let this be a reminder that respect shouldn't be a transaction. It should be the default. We need to build a world where you don't need a badge to be treated like a human being.